very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Let's get started. Our top story tonight on Gravitas focuses on the big questions hanging in the air right now, the answers to which have far-reaching implications, not just for West Asia, but beyond. Will US President Donald Trump bomb Iran's nuclear facilities? How quickly can Iran build a nuclear bomb? Where do things stand right now? We focus on these questions as we decode the latest developments for you. That's coming up in just a bit, and here's a look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. What is Donald Trump's strategy as far as the Houthis are concerned? After a relentless aerial campaign, is the US now preparing to hit the ground? We tell you why that question is being asked. We also get to the latest on the Russia-Ukraine war, another twist as Ukraine carries out a massive drone attack in Russia's Kursk region, as Trump blames Biden, Putin and Zelensky for the war. What are things looking like at this point? All this and lots more coming up. Our top story tonight on Gravitas starts off with a critical question. Will US President Donald Trump order a strike on Iran's nuclear facilities? It may sound drastic, but there are signs that this could become a very real option on the table. And let's tell you why this question is being asked. Two major developments could determine the answer. First, there is a second round of talks between the US and Iran scheduled in Oman this Saturday. And if those talks fail, diplomacy may disappear fast. Second, the head of the United Nations nuclear watchdog is visiting Tehran tomorrow. And if that visit does not yield meaningful results, especially in verifying Iran's uranium enrichment and nuclear intentions, the pressure will only mount. And here's where it gets even more serious. Trump's special envoy to West Asia, Steve Witkoff, has made one thing very clear. Any new deal with Iran must include strict verification mechanisms. That includes monitoring Iran's uranium enrichment levels and checking for any weaponization efforts. And Iran is drawing the red line. A spokesperson for the IRGC, in fact, has made it absolutely clear. Iran's military capabilities, including its missile arsenal and defense infrastructure, are non-negotiable. So, with diplomacy hanging by a thread, with hardliners on both sides setting the stage for confrontation in a way, we are circling back to that question we started off with. Is Trump preparing to bomb Iran's nuclear production sites? That is the big story tonight. Now, according to US intelligence assessments and the latest data from the International Nuclear Watchdog, Tehran can quickly build a nuclear bomb if it chooses to. That means Iran's nuclear capabilities are approaching a critical threshold. Speaking to Fox News, Witkoff emphasized that Iran has no need to enrich uranium beyond 3.67% for a peaceful energy program, which was the limit set under the 2015 nuclear deal known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. That agreement, as you would remember, was abandoned by Trump in 2018. But you see, Iran is not sticking to that 3.67% figure. Instead, it's enriching uranium at levels as high as 60% in some facilities, 60, and just 30% short of weapons-grade material. According to the International Atomic Energy Agency, Iran now possesses nearly 275 kilograms of uranium enriched to 60%. Nearing the weapons grade of 90%. US officials warning that if Iran makes the political decision to weaponize that stockpile, it could convert the material into weapons grade within 7 to 10 days. While building an actual weapon could take longer, somewhere between 12 and 18 months by most US estimates, experts do believe at this point that Iran could build a crude, deliverable nuclear device in just 6 months or even less, if its scientific teams are mobilized immediately. And here's the key point. Those teams already exist. US intelligence agencies believe Iran has assembled the technical personnel and infrastructure needed to build a bomb rapidly. That is, if the supreme leader gives the green light. So if Trump decides to bomb Iran's nuclear sites, what are his options? Here's a look at the map on your screen right now. These are the locations of Iran's nuclear sites spread across different parts of the country. It's important to note here that Witkoff stopped short of calling for a complete dismantling of Iran's nuclear infrastructure. Instead, he stressed on the importance of monitoring and verifying both Iran's enrichment levels and its missile development. He pointed out that weaponization is not just about nuclear material. It includes nuclear delivery systems, warhead design, the triggering mechanism for a detonation. These comments by Witkoff come just days after he led a high-level US delegation to Oman last week with Iranian officials, which both sides described as constructive. And in his first comments since the talks, Iran's supreme leader has said that the talks went well, further urging the US to not tie Iran's affairs to the second round of talks. These talks, incidentally, were the first direct engagement between Tehran and Washington since the 2015 nuclear deal collapsed. Iran's foreign minister, for that matter, who took part in those discussions, is expected to travel to Moscow later this week for further consultations with Russian officials. And his visit comes as the head of the UN's nuclear watchdog is scheduled to arrive in Tehran tomorrow and plans to meet with senior Iranian officials, including Arakchi and the head of Iran's Atomic Energy Agency. And even as diplomacy continues to play out, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is drawing red lines. Similar to Khamenei's statements, a spokesperson for the IRGC, Iran's military capabilities, including its defense and missile arsenal, are non-negotiable in the second round of talks with the US, adding that national security matters are off the table, no matter what incentives or pressures the US brings to the table. And regarding Iran, US President Donald Trump told reporters in Washington, and I'm quoting here, "I'll solve that problem, and that's almost an easy one." Listen to this.
I want them to be a rich, great nation. The only thing is, one thing, simple. It's really simple. They can't have a nuclear weapon. And they got to go fast because they're fairly close to having one. And they're not going to have one. And if we have to do something very harsh, we'll do it.
And Iran, for its part, insists its nuclear program is peaceful. Officials say the enriched uranium is for medical and energy needs, not weapons. The regime has repeatedly denied any intention to build a bomb.
Iran's main negotiation topic and primary demand is the removal of the unjust and illegal sanctions imposed on the Iranian people for decades. This is a serious and fundamental request, and we made this clear in the negotiations in Muscat.
Iran's state media, for that matter, has echoed the government's position, stating that Tehran's regional influence and missile program off limits in any negotiation. Iran's red lines are clear, and they appear to be hardening with each round of international engagement. And the next round of Iran-US nuclear talks is scheduled for this Saturday, like we said, and it comes amid the increasing possibility that Iran may soon possess everything it needs to join the nuclear club, if it hasn't already. So the question still remains, will Trump bomb Iran's nuclear facilities, or is America prepared or willing to accept the emergence of a new nuclear power in West Asia? Let's now talk about the next chapter of American involvement in Yemen. After a series of relentless air attacks for 30 consecutive days, is America now preparing to hit the ground? Is US President Donald Trump now pushing forward a strategy to eliminate the Houthis with overwhelming force? Overnight, deadly explosions rocked areas near the Yemeni capital. The Houthis, the Iranian-backed rebel group controlling large parts of the country's northwest, claim that US airstrikes killed at least 7 people and injured nearly 30. And according to the Houthi Health Ministry, American-led air assaults over the past month itself have now taken the lives of more than 120 people. And it's not just bombs that are falling from the skies, by the way. The Houthis say they have shot down another US MQ-9 Reaper drone, one of several reportedly lost in this escalating conflict.
Our air defenses successfully shot down a hostile American MQ-9 drone while it was carrying out hostile missions in the airspace of Hajar Governorate. The drone was downed using a locally made surface-to-air missile. This marks the 4th drone shot down by our air defenses in 2 weeks, and the 19th since the beginning of the Promised Conquest and Sacred Jihad campaign in support to Gaza.
And on the ground, Houthi media aired footage of firefighters battling blazes ignited by the latest round of airstrikes, with flames lighting up the night sky over a ceramic factory. And the extent of American military pressure is further increasing. The US Central Command has released fresh footage showing sailors aboard the USS Carl Vinson loading weapons and prepping fighter jets for further operations in West Asia. The aircraft carrier's arrival in the region itself marks a clear escalation, backing up what appears to be a much broader campaign to cripple the Houthi capabilities. Another piece of footage released by the US Navy showed fighter jets taking off from an American aircraft carrier, but air power alone does not hold territory. And that's why the latest developments are significant. And there are various reports stating that ground forces allied with the US may soon enter the fray. Local Yemeni militias backed by the UAE are reportedly planning a ground offensive aimed at reclaiming key coastal areas from Houthi control. These forces, based in Yemen's south, are reportedly preparing to push northward towards the strategically critical port city of Hodeidah. Capturing Hodeidah would be a devastating blow to the Houthis. Not only does the port serve as a vital economic lifeline, but it's also one of the primary entry points for Iranian-supplied weapons. And while Tehran continues to publicly deny arming the rebels, UN inspectors have repeatedly traced intercepted weapon shipments back to Iranian sources. The plan to recapture Hodeidah reportedly was raised by Emirati officials in meetings with their American counterparts. If executed successfully, it would reportedly force the Houthis to retreat from much of the Red Sea coastline, severing their maritime launchpad for attacks on global shipping. But not everyone is on the board. is on board. Saudi Arabia, once part of a powerful Arab coalition that fought the Houthis for years, is now hesitant. Very crucial. In fact, Riyadh has reportedly told US and Yemeni officials that it will not support a new ground operation. The kingdom reportedly is apprehensive of another Houthi missile and drone attack on its cities. And over the years, the Houthis have stockpiled a potent arsenal, including ballistic missiles like the Typhoon, an Iranian Qadr derivative, and the Quds cruise missile, some variants of which can reach targets more than 1,600 kilometers away. They have used these to strike Abu Dhabi and Saudi cities earlier. So where does all of this lead? For now, America is hitting from the sky, but the presence of the USS Carl Vinson, the uptick in the US military messaging, and mounting reports of ground preparations painting a far more aggressive picture. If the airstrikes were Act 1, we may soon be watching Act 2 unfold on the ground. And we are shifting focus for now. Ukraine has carried out a massive drone attack in Russia's Kursk region, marking an escalation in the ongoing conflict. And Moscow claims 1 dead, dozens injured in a fresh attack. US President Donald Trump, meanwhile, blaming Joe Biden, Putin, and Zelensky for starting the war. Russia says there is no clear outline for the Russia-US deal amid the stalled ceasefire talks. Our next report getting you the complete story.
Ukraine launches a massive drone strike on Kursk. These are the images of fire engulfing several buildings in the Russian territory. Ukraine bombarded the border region with dozens of drones. A multi-storied apartment building with blown-out windows and fire damage to the facade. Drones struck an ambulance garage, damaging 11 cars. The Russian Defense Ministry says it downed 109 drones over the region in overnight strikes.
The Russian Investigative Committee has opened a criminal case of a terrorist act over the attack by Ukrainian armed formations on the city of Kursk.
The hit on Kursk, some 90 kilometers from the Ukrainian border, comes after Russian ballistic missiles killed at least 34 people in Sumy on Sunday, and 9 in Odessa on Monday. The relentless bombardment in the strategic hub of Pokrovsk has forced many to evacuate their homes. Once home to a thriving population of approximately 60,000 people, the city now finds itself largely deserted. The Russia-Ukraine war has entered a dangerous phase amid relentless aerial assaults from both sides. The long-drawn battle is frustrating US President Donald Trump despite his desperate push for a ceasefire. Kyiv is hoping for a ceasefire. It is resting its hopes on Washington. Now Trump appears to be blaming Kyiv for the war. The US president says 3 people, Biden, Putin and Zelensky, were responsible for the war. Trump once again lambasted the Ukrainian president for constantly seeking aid.
That's a war that should have never been allowed to start, and Biden could have stopped it, and Zelensky could have stopped it, and Putin should have never started it. Everybody's to blame.
Have you spoken to President Zelensky, sir, about his offer to purchase more Patriot missile batteries?
Oh, I don't know. He's always looking to purchase missiles, you know. He's against, listen, when you start a war, you got to know that you can win the war, right? You don't start a war against somebody that's 20 times your size. and then hope that people give you some missiles.
On the streets of Kyiv, Ukrainians dismissed Trump's claims.
These are baseless statements. Putin started the war. Russia invaded our territory. They are killing, destroying, terrorizing the people. They are killing the children, our future. Ukraine's best children are buried here, talented and smart. This fiendish devil, Putin, he has horns. Trump just plays along Putin, nothing more.
As an Ukrainian, I can only not agree with Trump. It is the responsibility that the U.S., a democratic country, undertook 3 years ago to help. If they undertook it 3 years ago, I think it is worth continuing, not to look for whom to blame for the inability to reach a peace deal with Putin.
As Trump pushes for peace, Moscow has not been able to give a possible timeline for a peace settlement. Though the Kremlin says there is not yet a clear outline of a potential US-Russia deal on Ukraine, it asserts there is political will to move in that direction. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Moving on for now to Pakistan. A powerful roadside bomb exploded near a vehicle carrying security personnel in the province of Balochistan, killing at least 3 police officers and injuring over 18 others. While no group has claimed responsibility for the attack, the Baloch Liberation Army, or the BLA, is suspected to be behind this. And according to a government spokesperson, the blast took place in the Mastung district, around 40 kilometers south of the provincial capital, Quetta. In a statement, the Pakistan Prime Minister has denounced the attack and vowed to continue what he calls the fight against terrorism.
Our troops from Kalat, who follow a daily routine, were targeted today by a remote-controlled bomb on a motorcycle. Unfortunately, 3 were martyred and 18 injured in this attack.
You see, for decades now, Pakistan authorities have been battling insurgency in Balochistan with an array of groups, including the BLA, staging multiple attacks, targeting security forces and civilians in the province as well as other parts of the country. The demands of the BLA are clear. They want independence from the central government in Islamabad. They want control over their natural resources. Even as Pakistan authorities claim they have managed to quell the insurgency, violence in Balochistan continues. In the last month itself, the situation in Balochistan has become increasingly tense after several groups announced the formation of a common armed front on the 2nd of March. Not just that, the hijacking of the Jafar Express passenger train with more than 400 people on board on the 11th of March was a tipping point in the escalation of violence in the region. The hijacking, which was claimed by the BLA, ended after a 48-hour operation by the security forces. And fresh details have now surfaced about BLA's Jafar Express attack. As per a report by the Washington Post, US-made advanced weapons were used in the Jafar Express attack, which were recovered from the site. Among the weapons recovered from the scene are an M41 carbine rifle, one among billions of dollars worth of US military equipment provided to Afghan forces, which were abandoned after the withdrawal of the US troops from Kabul. Not just that, US assault rifles, machine guns, night vision goggles are also found to be used by the Pakistani Taliban, or TTP, and other groups reportedly to wreak havoc across Pakistan. Only last month, the latest report published by the Global Terrorism Index 2025 has given Pakistan the 2nd spot among 163 countries, owing to a major surge in terror attacks and the swelling number of civilian casualties. The report also revealing that attacks across Pakistan rose by 45% just in 2024 alone. And the TTP has emerged to be the deadliest outfit. A total of 482 attacks were carried out in Pakistan by the TTP, resulting in 585 deaths, which is a sharp rise from 293 deaths witnessed last year due to attacks. And these are major indicators that Pakistan is in the grip of extreme terror, respite from which seems unlikely in the near future unless the authorities step up. The question still is, can the government combat this? Let's now talk about Donald Trump's tariff saga. Stock markets have risen today, shares in several automakers gaining after Trump hinted that the sector could get some tariff respite. In fact, Wall Street opened slightly higher, while the dollar, which has been battered in recent days, recovered some losses against the euro. European indices performed better than US peers in afternoon deals. But Trump is once again angry with China, US President accusing Beijing of going back on a major Boeing deal. A news report claiming that Beijing ordered airlines not to take further deliveries of the US aviation giant's jets. And as a result, the stocks of Boeing have tanked. On Dow Jones Industrial Average, the aviation giant stocks fell 2% in early trading. China is Boeing's largest market, and estimates reveal that the Asian superpower was expected to facilitate 20% of the global demand for Boeing jets over the next 20 years. The world's first and second biggest economies are locked in this tug of war over reciprocal tariffs. In the past few days itself, the US and China have both escalated the tariff rates, neither side willing to step down. But the standoff is not just about trade and tariffs alone. It's also become a war of power moves and trying to change the narrative. In tit-for-tat moves, America has slapped 145% tariff on China, while the latter has reciprocated with 125% tariffs on American goods. But Beijing says it will not increase the rates further, and officials have requested US counterparts to abolish the tariffs. But beyond the retaliatory moves, there is a lot more happening on the ground. China is on a regional outreach mission to diversify trade ties and find ways to cushion the blow from the heightened American tariffs. President Xi Jinping is on a 3-country tour to deepen bilateral ties with regional neighbors and countries who are part of China's Belt and Road Initiative. After a 2-day visit in Vietnam, Xi Jinping's next stop is Malaysia, also Cambodia. Both the countries that he has not visited in 12 and 9 years, respectively. Talks between the top leaders of both countries still in the early stages. But businesses in China are bracing for the impact, worried if they can survive the escalated rates.
Right now, it's not just a matter of changing tracks. It's a matter of life or death. You could say that. Around 60 to 70% of our business is from American clients. So the pressure we're under is extremely high.
US tariffs on China have now reached 145%. The impact is very big for us because our main market is the United States. I hope that everyone can sit down and talk properly. It would be best to try to keep the tariffs at the same level as before.
Within China, other businesses are trying different trade tricks in order to attract buyers. And the luxury market has become a crucial target. Chinese manufacturers are taking to social media to reveal how luxury products are made in China at 1/10 the cost that buyers pay Western brands. It's not just China. America's most trusted allies are also caught in the tariff storm. Paris says Trump's tariffs shattered trust around the world. Listen in.
The President of the United States, Donald Trump, has unleashed a storm whose consequences will not stop soon by giving the go to a global trade war without warning, from one day to the next, striking with unimaginable tariffs, first its Chinese competitors, then its closest allies.
And before we go on, here's a quick look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. Do aliens exist? A Cold War era incident has added yet another layer to that big question. We tell you all that you need to know. As Jammu and Kashmir Police starts first all-female squad to help women in distress, we get you the complete story. You don't want to miss this. An extraordinary journey made by an endangered sea turtle is winning hearts. We tell you why an olive ridley turtle is being called the Marco Polo of turtles. The Indian Army guards one of the coldest and highest borders in North Sikkim along the line of actual control. Apart from protecting the territorial integrity of India, the Army has improved the livelihood of the locals. Our next report telling you more. Take a look. Our next story is about global spy games, and they're only heating up. In the world of espionage, there is neither a friend nor a foe. And the reason why we're saying that is because it's almost an open secret that countries spy on each other pretty much all the time, be it their enemies or their allies. And when it involves global superpowers like the US and China, things are bound to get a lot more tricky. Over the years, several foreign nations have allegedly spied on the US, particularly the European countries. The EU, on the other hand, has also levied similar allegations against the US, especially through the National Security Agency, or NSA's, surveillance programs, which includes monitoring phone calls and emails of foreign leaders, as well as collecting data on millions of people worldwide. And in the latest, the European Commission is issuing burner phones and basic laptops to some US-bound staff to avoid the risk of espionage. And this new brief applies to commissioners and senior officials traveling to the IMF and the World Bank spring meetings next week. What exactly are burner phones? And how can they prevent one from being spied upon? Simply put, a burner phone is a cheap prepaid phone with no commitments. It comes with a set number of prepaid call minutes, text messages or data. It is designed to be disposed of after use. Very important. Burners are contract-free and essentially called burner phones because one can trash them after use, as the name suggests. And the phone cannot be traced back to the user. However, it's not just the EU that has levied espionage charges against the US. China has also accused America of launching advanced cyber attacks during the Asian Winter Games in February. In a statement released by the police, 3 agents from the National Security Agency were accused of attacks on key information infrastructure. The US has not yet responded to the matter. At the heart of these allegations and counter-allegations is the escalating tariff and trade war between the US and other countries. Trump had accused the EU of challenging the US and announced 20% so-called reciprocal tariffs on the bloc's exports, which he later halved for a 90-day period. Against China, Trump imposed a steep tariff of 145%, while China has retaliated with 125% tariffs on U.S. goods. China's latest allegations of U.S. espionage coming as the U.S. government launches investigations into imports of computer chips, chip-making gear, and pharmaceuticals. The web of global espionage also extending to countries like Russia, which is said to have posed a significant cyber threat to the U.S., as per a report in the Telegraph. Only last month, the U.S. Defense Secretary offered his cyber spies to take their focus away from Russia, and this development comes as China and Iran were identified to be a major threat to U.S. cyber infrastructure. And not just Russia, North Korea has also been accused of cyber espionage against the U.S. Thousands of North Koreans who use stolen identities of foreigners are being reportedly hired as techies in U.S. firms who carry out the purported spying. Israel has also been accused of spying on the U.S. In 2012, it was reported that the Israeli intelligence agency Mossad was accused of spying on U.S. officials and collecting sensitive information. And more recently, in 2019, U.S. intelligence found that Israel placed cell phone surveillance devices near the White House and other sensitive locations in Washington. While spying in general may be controversial and can sometimes strain diplomatic ties, more so between allies, things, of course, keep shifting in the geopolitical context. Critics argue it to be an integral part of global diplomacy. Everyone's a spy or a suspect at best, and nobody is the winner. For decades, militaries have relied on advanced cloaking technologies to dominate the skies, but now the era of invisibility could be collapsing. Our next story, taking a deep dive into emerging technologies like quantum radar, which could make even the stealthiest aircraft lose its most potent capability. They cannot hide in the skies. Take a look.
Fighter jets have long ruled the skies cloaked in silence, sleek, sharp, and nearly invisible. They glide through radar systems with ease. 5th and 6th generation aircraft like America's F-35, China's J-20, or Russia's MiG-41, touted as future stealth fighters, are all engineered with stealth coatings, radar-absorbent materials, and advanced contours that fool conventional detection. And then there are drones. Small, silent, and elusive. Too compact to ping on standard systems, they slip past defenses, delivering surveillance or even strikes before they're noticed. But now, an invisible revolution is taking shape. Fighter jets use radar-absorbent materials, angular designs, to deflect or absorb electromagnetic waves. Drones exploit radar blind spots by flying low and slow, yet quantum radar, a revolutionary leap in detection, is rendering these tricks obsolete due to their precision.
This is an example of something called a quantum clock, and it's a bit like an ultra-precise wristwatch. But now, if we started it ticking at the beginning of the universe, it wouldn't have lost a second by now.
Unlike conventional radar, which relies on radio waves bouncing off targets, quantum radar uses entangled photons pairs of light particles linked across distances. Even if a stealth jet absorbs or scatters most photons, the remaining entangled pairs retain information about the target's location and shape. This quantum fingerprint allows detection with unprecedented precision, bypassing traditional stealth tactics designed to minimize radar cross-sections. Quantum radar can detect the tiny machines so they can be tracked or intercepted.
If you imagine how your eye operates, your central vision is really good at giving you a sharp image of what you're looking at. Your peripheral vision is terrible at doing that, but your peripheral vision is optimized to detect movement. And what we're trying to do is to supercharge the peripheral vision of radar.
Militaries across the world, especially in China, Canada and Europe, are now racing to develop the quanta radar technology. Stealth as we know it is dying. The future belongs to those who can see the unseen. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Brace yourselves, because what we are about to tell you might sound like science fiction. A question that's been doing the rounds for the longest time. Do aliens exist? And a Cold War era incident might have just added another layer to that big question. According to a formerly classified document, originally made public in 2000 but recently resurfacing, a bizarre and deadly encounter allegedly unfolded somewhere in the Soviet Union around 1989 or 1990. The document, believed to be based on a 250-page KGB file obtained after the USSR's collapse, outlines a chain of events that reads more like a sci-fi movie script or a novel than a military report. It all started with 25 Soviet troops on a routine training mission near a military base near present-day Ukraine or Siberia. And that's when the soldiers reportedly spotted a quiet saucer-shaped craft hovering at low altitude. One of them fired a surface-to-surface missile directly striking the mysterious object and bringing it plummeting to the ground. But what followed was anything but ordinary. 5 short humanoid creatures reportedly exited the craft. You heard that right. According to the CIA document, they had oversized heads, large black eyes, moved with unsettling speed, and later merged into a single spherical-shaped glowing object. And then the unimaginable happened. The object unleashed a blinding burst of light, and within seconds, 23 soldiers were turned to stone, literally stone. 2 troops managed to survive only because they were standing in the shadow of a nearby structure. According to the memo, the KGB wasted no time. They allegedly collected the bodies and the alien wreckage and transported everything to a top-secret facility outside Moscow. As for the weapon that caused this, it was described as something far beyond what modern science could possibly understand, let alone replicate. Fast forward to the Trump administration. During his 2024 campaign, in fact, he dismissed the idea of aliens outright. But once elected, he signed an executive order mandating the release of all federal files related to extraterrestrial activity. Trump said Americans deserved to know the truth and deserved to know if a decades-long cover-up had actually taken place. The memo at the heart of all this, it's been circulating online for over a year now and igniting a heated debate. Was this an actual alien attack, or just a brilliant piece of Cold War propaganda designed to scare the West? We may never know. Regardless, the mystery of extraterrestrial life just got a lot stranger. In a special initiative to ensure safety of women, Jammu and Kashmir Police launched an all-female safety squad in Srinagar. The main objective? To ensure safety of women around schools, universities and coaching centers. Security of tourists visiting the valley is also their mandate. Take a look.
Jammu and Kashmir Police all-female squads have been deployed around Srinagar. Their mission is to ensure that women feel safer in public places. The Jammu and Kashmir Police has also set up a public helpline numbers for women facing harassment or eve teasing in public places. Groups of the new all-women squads have been deployed outside educational institutions and tourist places like Dal Lake and Tulip Garden. Heads of educational institutions have also been made aware of these special squads dedicated to women's security.
Most of the calls that we get are from coaching centers and educational institutions. We patrol the Dal Lake area. Every day in the evening, we have put a security squad outside the Tulip Garden as well.
Girl students and women have welcomed the move. They say an all-women force makes it easier for them to open up to officials about their needs.
This is a very good initiative, and we feel our issues will be addressed properly. The females can easily now contact the female police officers. The female officers will easily understand our feelings, and it would be so much easier for us to make the complaint.
It's for the first time that an all-female squad of the Jammu and Kashmir police has been deployed in various parts of the Srinagar city. This is not only to protect the women and especially the girls going to colleges and coaching centers, but also the tourists who are coming to Kashmir Valley and sometimes face some cases of harassment. With video journalist Feroz Idris Lone for WION World is One.
Shifting focus now to the US, Meta, the parent company of Facebook, Instagram and WhatsApp, is reportedly facing a serious legal challenge, one that could force it to sell off Instagram and WhatsApp. The United States Federal Trade Commission has launched a major antitrust case against Meta, accusing it of buying rivals to kill off competition and build a social media monopoly. This case, which has been long-standing, has now gone to trial. And on Monday, the Meta chief, Mark Zuckerberg, took the stand at the trial in Washington, defending the company's acquisitions and strategy. This is in face of the U.S. antitrust enforcers' claims that the company spent billions of dollars to acquire Instagram and WhatsApp to fend off Facebook competitors. But how exactly did it all start? Back in 2020, the FTC sued Meta, then known as Facebook, arguing that it had illegally maintained monopoly power by acquiring competitors before they could grow. And two deals were at the center of the case. Facebook's acquisition of Instagram for $1 billion in 2012 and WhatsApp for $19 billion in 2014. Although the FTC had approved both the deals at the time, it later changed its stance, saying the purchases reflected a pattern. The FTC argues that Meta's actions have deprived consumers of better products and more choices, and that by merging Facebook, Instagram and WhatsApp under one umbrella, the company allegedly reduced innovation in the broader social networking space. And what does Meta have to say? Well, it has strongly denied the allegations, arguing that it's trying to undo approved deals over a decade ago is legally absurd. Meta also claims that the company faces intense competition from other platforms like TikTok, YouTube, Snapchat, LinkedIn, and therefore cannot be considered a monopoly. And why does this trial matter? This is the most serious legal threat that Meta has faced in years. If the government wins, it is likely to ask the court to force Meta to divest Instagram and WhatsApp. And that's not all. This could mark a dramatic shift in how regulators actually approach tech mergers and could also limit the ability of large companies like Meta itself to acquire startups in the future. What happens next? We'll have to wait and watch. Yawning is one of the most universal yet mysterious human acts. We've all done it. One long meeting, perhaps a heavy lunch, one yawn wide and silent. Suddenly, all eyes are on you, maybe a frown from the boss. On average, we yawn 5 to 20 times a day, often involuntarily, stretching our lungs and increasing our heart rate. Yawning has long been seen as the universal sign of boredom or sleepiness. It's what sneaks up during a dull presentation, perhaps, or mid-commute. But now a new study by the American Academy of Sleep Medicine revealing something rather surprising. Yawning might actually signal a deeper issue. Your brain is moments away from shutting down. The study highlights how insufficient sleep, less than 7 to 8 hours a night, can worsen conditions like diabetes, depression, high blood pressure, stroke, obesity. The study highlights how repeated yawning, especially in situations requiring focus like flying or operating machinery, could predict micro-sleep. That's a sudden, involuntary moment of sleep, often lasting just a few seconds. It's short, but long enough to drift out of a lane or perhaps miss a red light. Researchers found that people who yawn frequently are significantly more likely to make dangerous mistakes. In the US alone, around 100,000 car accidents a year are attributed to drowsy driving. And these crashes result in numerous injuries and fatalities, highlighting the significant impact of fatigue on driving safety. Surgeons, train operators, even factory workers are all at risk if they dismiss yawning as nothing more than little drowsiness. In fact, yawning could be your body's way of quietly waving a red flag. You're too tired to be doing this. That's what your body is trying to perhaps tell you, and it's time to take a step back and just relax. One of the world's most premier institutions is making headlines. The Trump administration has announced freezing of about $2.3 billion in federal funds in grants and contracts to Harvard University. The university is the latest to have come under the radar after funding was suspended to other top universities, including Columbia, Princeton, and Cornell University, among others. The Ivy League school allegedly refused to bow down to the White House demands. And these included crackdown on anti-Semitism and civil rights violations, closure of its diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, reportedly ban on face masks, which appears to target pro-Palestinian protesters, and cooperate with federal immigration authorities. Escalating the attack on the Ivy League college, Trump on social media called for the removal of the tax-exempt status of Harvard. Trump further advocated for taxing it as a political entity, while accusing it of pandering to a political narrative. Trump's statement comes hours after Barack Obama lauded the university for not ceding to the demands of the White House. However, the university president, in a public statement, refused to cave in. The statement said, and I'm quoting, "We will not surrender its independence or relinquish its constitutional rights. Neither Harvard nor any other private university can allow itself to be taken over by the federal government," quote unquote. The fight between the Harvard University and Trump is not new. Trump has repeatedly targeted Ivy League colleges for not doing enough to protect Jewish students from anti-Semitism activities. Other than this, Trump has accused Harvard of only catering to the elite class and receiving the largest federal endowments. Earlier in March, Trump suspended $400 million in funding to Columbia University, $210 million in funding to Princeton University, $1 billion and $790 million in funding to Cornell University and Northwestern University. A remarkable journey by an endangered sea turtle has surprised scientists. An olive ridley turtle, now being dubbed as the Marco Polo of turtles, has traveled over 3,500 kilometers. This is the first such recorded instance for the species, in fact. The turtle was tagged on a beach in Odisha in 2021. The turtle crossed 2 ocean basins and reached the coast in Maharashtra, the Konkan coast. And there, it laid 120 eggs at a beach in Ratnagiri. In 2025, 107 of those eggs hatched. And scientists are calling this a major discovery. Dr. Basudev Tripathi from the Zoological Survey of India has said over 12,000 olive ridley turtles were tagged in 2021 at Gairmatha, and these turtles typically move south to Sri Lanka after nesting, but this turtle took a rare route west into the Arabian Sea. Earlier, experts thought east and west coast turtles were separate groups, but this turtle's journey suggests the population may be connected. Dr. Suresh Kumar from the Wildlife Institute of India says the turtle may be using two nesting sites. It could have laid eggs in both Odisha and Maharashtra. Researchers say this changes how they understand olive ridley migration patterns. And as they continue to monitor the turtle to gather more insights into their populations and migration patterns, scientists say protecting nesting beaches on both coasts is now more important than ever. A 5.2 magnitude earthquake shook Southern California, sending boulders tumbling onto rural roadways outside San Diego, items rattling off shelves. But during the earthquake, something rather unique was spotted. Our next story taking a closer look at how elephants at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park, who were scrambling to encircle their young, were seen doing something rather extraordinary. Take a look.
Elephants are the largest land animals on Earth. Roaming across savannas, grasslands, and forests, these majestic creatures captivate us with their intelligence, social dynamics, and incredible memories. Studies even show that Asian elephants mourn their dead. But what happens when the ground beneath their feet trembles? At the San Diego Zoo Safari Park, these gentle giants have shown their extraordinary instincts. Look closely how the adults position themselves in a tight circle around the calves, trunks raised, eyes alert, protective, precise military in discipline, and maternal in intent. This extraordinary display of familial bonds and protective instincts reminds us why elephants are revered for their intelligence and empathy. Such behavior is no anomaly. In the wild, elephants depend on the collective strength of the herd to raise young and face danger. The matriarch, typically the oldest and most experienced female, leads with unmatched authority. Under her watch, the herd navigates the world, and during times of crisis, she ensures the calves, the future of the group, are protected at all costs. Today, roughly 400,000 African elephants and 40,000 Asian elephants remain in the wild. But they're vanishing fast due to poaching, habitat loss, and human conflict. Incidents like this remind us why their survival matters. These are not just animals. They are caretakers, strategists, survivors.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Kampir, signing off. Thanks very much for watching.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
Welcome back and thank you very much for staying with us. This is WION World is One. We are glad you're watching. Time now for Pulse American Joker. Let's begin with the headlines. Reports say Hamas has turned down an Israeli offer for a 6-week ceasefire in Gaza, which demanded the group to disarm. The Iran-backed group claims it has lost contact with US-Israeli hostage after the strike. The US State Department is expected to propose an unprecedented scaling back of Washington's diplomatic reach, shattering programs and embassies worldwide to slash the budget by almost 50%. US President Donald Trump threatens to strip Harvard University of its tax-exempt status after freezing $2 billion in funds, says the university will be taxed as political entity if the elite college does not agree to his demands. Chinese President Xi Jinping arrives in Malaysia for a highly anticipated state visit that comes as Beijing fights an escalating trade war with the US. China tries to position itself as a stable alternative to President Donald Trump's punitive tariff regime. Syria's Ahmed al-Sharaa arrives in Qatar on his first visit to the country as interim president since Assad's fall, holds talks with Qatar's Emir Tamim Al Thani in Doha. A Pakistan court allows jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan to undergo medical treatment and to speak with his children living in the UK. The Enforcement Directorate files a charge sheet against Congress members of Parliament Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi in the alleged National Herald money laundering case. A special court fixes April 25th as the hearing date. And disgraced Hollywood mogul Harvey Weinstein's retrial on rape and sex assault charges has begun, forcing survivors who helped fire up the #MeToo movement to prepare to testify against him once more. And in your sports today, the chairman of Saudi Arabia's Automobile and Motorcycle Federation says the kingdom could own a Formula One team in the near future. The comments come ahead of the Saudi Formula One Grand Prix this weekend.
Challenger.
As the war continues to rage in Gaza, Hamas has said that it has lost contact with Israeli-American hostage Eden Alexander. Hamas's armed wing said that they lost contact with the group holding Alexander hostage shortly after an Israeli strike on their location in Gaza. Abu Obaida, spokesperson for the Al-Qassam brigades, said that the group is still trying to reach the other Hamas members. Alexander's location was last known till Saturday when Hamas had released a video of the US hostage. The video showed Alexander criticizing the Israeli government for not securing his release. 58 hostages still remain in Hamas's captivity as talks between the group and Israel reach a dead end. Just a short while ago, Hamas rejected Israel's ceasefire proposal, which it received via mediators. Israel had reportedly proposed a 45-day ceasefire with Hamas in exchange for the release of 10 living hostages. Just last week, U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff said that Washington was very close to securing the release of hostages. Witkoff told families of remaining hostages, and I quote, that a deal is on the table and the release of the remaining hostages will happen in the matter of a few days. Let's talk to our correspondent who's joining us live from New York, Susan Teherani. Good to see you. Has the U.S. responded to this claim by Hamas?
We haven't had any official response regarding that, but we do have an Israeli statement that said one of the top commanders of Hamas was killed in this latest raid. They haven't acknowledged Erdan Alexander, and that video that Hamas released of Alexander, now many are skeptical that it was perhaps recorded earlier. They don't know exact timing of when that, no one knows when that video was recorded. Was it recent? Was it maybe a few months ago? So that kind of complicates the issue a little more. But nonetheless, the case of Erdan Alexander was at the heart of negotiations, not only on the part of Witkoff in the United States, but the Israeli government working in tandem with the United States. And now when his fate is unknown, things are going to get a lot more complicated.
And talking about Witkoff, do we have any latest update from his department?
Regarding the Israeli-Palestinian issue, they were waiting for Hamas to respond to Israeli ceasefire proposal for that 45 days. Some analysts right now, upon hearing this news very quickly, and this is breaking news, they're saying that this is sort of a bargaining chip on the part of Hamas, while, people in Hamas and those affiliated with Hamas say that this was a pre-planned attack by Israel to sort of bring Erdan Alexander out of the negotiating equation, so to say. So a lot of variables, not much confirmation, Eric.
Susan Teherani, we'll have to leave it there. Good to see you. Thank you. Drones have rewritten the rules of the war. In today's warfare, every country is racing to have the latest drones in their armory. The Russia-Ukraine war has shown how swarms of drones can change the tide of the war. This next story explains how Russia is preparing a million-plus army of drone pilots.
Forget boots on the ground. The future of war is buzzing above us in the whir of propellers, the blink of sensors, and the flash of detonations delivered by machines no bigger than a backpack. Drones have completely transformed modern warfare. In Ukraine, both sides are locked in a deadly drone arms race. From long-range kamikaze UAVs that strike deep into enemy territory, to small, low-flying quadcopters rigged with grenades, capable of dropping death through open hatches. These aren't support tools anymore, they are the front line. Now, Russia is taking the drone war to a whole new level. Moscow plans to train over 1.19 million drone pilots by 2030. Under Putin's unmanned aviation system strategy, Russia aims to produce 157,000 drones annually by 2030. That's a 9-fold increase and dominates 70% of its domestic market. On the other hand, Ukraine is already pressing for more drones. Kyiv has set an ambitious target of manufacturing 4.5 million drones solely from Ukrainian factories. While Western nations have provided Kyiv with advanced weaponry, but it is investing in its own domestic capabilities to stay ahead in the battle of attrition. Why does it matter? Because drones are cheap, fast, hard to detect, and devastatingly effective. While Ukraine is racing to manufacture millions of drones, Russia is training over 1 million to pilot the drones.
Russia launched one of its deadliest strikes on Ukraine's Sumy city, which is located just 25 kilometers away from Russian border. The Russian attacks on Ukraine's eastern front is a part of North Korea's elaborate plan to help Moscow in its war. Our next report decodes how North Korea is leaving no stone unturned to aid Russia.
North Korean soldiers joined Russia in its war against Ukraine last year. Together, the Russian and North Korean troops turned the tide on a Ukrainian incursion into Russia's western Kursk region. The Russians lacked armored vehicles and drone warfare experience, suffering heavy losses on the battleground. But Pyongyang quickly made up for its losses by sending over 14,000 troops. Not just the lives of its men, North Korea has been offering a lot more to Russia since the past 20 months. A Reuters investigation found North Korea shells have made their way to Ukraine's eastern front